Good afternoon. It is the appointed time to call to order the Tuesday, April 18th, 2017 meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. We do have a quorum. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the March 21st, 2017 meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And it is so done. Next up is to ratify the OCEDT claims. We have a motion and a second. We had a lengthy discussion today on the Economic Development Trust and its functions in our council workshop. Brent, would you just give us a few comments on some of the gold payments that are embodied in the claims for this month and what they have produced?
Sure. We paid, regarding gold, we paid on both Boeing 1, 2, and 3 projects. We paid $290,000 for the creation of 290 jobs for the period through December 31st of 2016. For Boeing number 2, we paid $980,000 for 891 new jobs that were created through December 31st. And then, and on that one, the goal for Boeing number 2 was 800 jobs, and we paid for 891. And then on Boeing number 3, we paid $576,000 for 480 new jobs. And our goal on that project is to get to 900 by the end of the 7th year. And then on Progression, which ended September 30th, we averaged 85 jobs, and we paid them $68,000.
And the average salary on those Boeing jobs was about how much? Doesn't have to be totally done.
I would say it's in excess of $85,000.
I think it's around $90,000.
$90,000?
Yes.
The city. Yep.
So unless you have an aversion to government getting involved in the economy, to a neophyte like myself, that sounds like a pretty good deal. We're getting pretty good return on our money.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We had a motion to second. Any other comments or questions? That was a paid commercial that got slipped in there. I'll just be real blunt about it, okay? Public information. Yes. Hello, Mr. Roth. Okay, we have a motion to second on the claims. Any other comments? Please cast your votes. And the claims are approved. Next up is on our agenda, deals with Project 180 package. Eric, you want to come forward and just give us a brief update on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have Streetscape Package number 8 for your consideration today. This is the final plans and specifications for what will be the final Streetscape official package to be released under Project 180. What we have found is through construction, we have enough funds to go and actually look at a few sections that were not able to be awarded in previous packages. And so what you're looking at today is about 3 major locations. You're looking at Broadway. This is from Main to Kerr. This will also include the intersection at Park Avenue that was not fully converted in some of the earlier work that was on Park. We also have alternate bids on this for a portion of Main Street from Robinson to Broadway and also Kerr, Walker to Hudson. So as we're looking out on this package, this is approximately a $2.4 million project, and so as bids come in, we'll make that decision as to which alternates, again, we can select and not select. This package is also a little bit different in that we are not anticipating a complete tear-out of everything within those streetscapes, and so this is an opportunity for us to go in areas that, like on Broadway, lots of those are in good condition. The median on Broadway has a lot of very large trees, but there are some sidewalks that are damaged. There are some lights that are not working. This is going to allow us to put the 180 lighting in. This is going to allow us to meet all the ADA updates, allow us to add some of the pavers and some of the other Project 180 details without completely relocating every utility and moving back in to the heavy construction that we've seen on some of the previous packages. So with your approval today, we will move forward. Bidding is anticipated in April, award in May. Construction would start this summer. And we're anticipating 6 to 9 months, depending on which packages are awarded and not. But our goal would be to try to finish it by the end of the year, but it's possible with the awards that could go into the early part of 2018.
Will this require any street closure or diversions?
You know, there will obviously be construction of the streets under traffic, and so I think we're going to see lane closures for certain. Park Avenue at Broadway is going to be the most complicated part of this as we restore the intersection. The intersection is going to be constructed in quadrants, and so we look to close a quarter of the intersection at a time, but keeping it open as much as possible. We're also working around a lot of downtown events, and so, yes, we have all those in mind, but the idea on this package is to keep them open, but it doesn't mean that we won't have some limited closures just to work in some of the construction.
I think that was a yes.
We're going to try to keep it open.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Thank you, Eric. As to votes. Okay, next up are final plans and specifications to be advertised for an area of town known to us in Oklahoma City as the Red Andrews Park. And I think we have Nikki Clegg here to do a presentation. Is that correct, Kathy?
No, we do, and I just want to point out a couple of things on the memo in your packet, and maybe something that isn't in the memo, is that we've been working with Mickey and a group of people representing businesses in Midtown to renovate, upgrade Red Andrews Park. So there is some tax increment financing money in this project from TIF 2. There's also some general obligation bond funds from the previous bond authorizations, as well as some private funding, and that's the piece that really isn't mentioned in your memo, but there are also some private funds in this project as well. And Mickey Clegg is here to kind of give an overview of the improvements that are planned for the park.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Yeah, so the total project's about $1 million, maybe a little bit more. There's $272,000 from the 2007 GEO bond, $400,000 in TIF that we're talking about today, another $218,000 in private, or $218,000 in private donations, essentially from Midtown Renaissance and St. Anthony. There's also the Sosa Neighborhood Association for $20,000, which is the cottage district, and then also another $40,000 from Valor, which is the neighbor to the south, Bob Moore, which is has their corporate office on 5th Street, downtown OKC for $10,000, and they expect to get another $10,000 in online pledges. And so, even with that, we show a little bit of a deficit, but we expect about $50,000, but we expect to make that up. Our contingencies include $69,000, so if we don't pick it up there, we think we'll pick it up in the bidding process, but if not, we have alternatives of $114,000 that we could pare back, so we can easily make the budget. So I'll go through the slides here quickly. There's a lot of information here, but I think essentially right here is the current design of the park as it sits today. And if you're not familiar with it, 8th Street is at the north, Chartel to the left, and Lee on the right, and then 7th Street on the south. And so from 8th Street to 7th Street, there's a 20-foot drop. So it significantly slopes to the south. So right now, as it sits today, the building in the middle is a gymnasium. I think, is it the only one left in the Parks Department?
I think it may be the only park that has just a gym. There's others. I think there's a gym at Woodson Park still, but
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, anyway, so essentially it's a gym and a parking lot. And so to make this a neighborhood park, the idea has always been to reclaim that parking lot, because you can see all that red on the north. And then number 5 there on the left, that's a wheelchair ramp. So it's this very significant ramp. It goes down and back across. And so we want to take that out, all that area, reclaim it as parkland, and then park around the perimeter, and we could get essentially the same number of parking spaces. So, Regina, if we could go, yeah. So this is what it looks like in the plan. And so you can see there on 8th Street where we have the parallel or the 45-degree parking, and some of those in the center will be handicap. And so those sweeping circles are at ADA grade, so those will be the handicap ramps, but also, well, essentially that. And so the playground area there shown is existing, but we would regrade the site, put in the new parking to the north, and landscape it. So that's essentially the plan. That's looking at it from a different view. So are there any questions?
Any questions of Mickey?
And I might add, the Parks Department has been wonderful in this, and they had that original $272,000 from the GEO bond, and that's where we went in and talked to them about using that money in a different way to reconfigure the park, to make it more of a neighborhood park, and retain the gymnasium.
Just a question about your construction timing and the use of the gymnasium and park. What are the thoughts there about, will it be open and accessible to the public during construction, or is it completely shut?
Yes, and construction should start in May of this year.
And then the purpose of the circular, those are pedestrian circles on each corner? Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
it's more design than anything else.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further questioning or discussion? Please cast your votes. And it's so approved. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda deals with our accounting service. Kathy?
This is an item to contract with the city's audit firm for this current fiscal year's audit. And there's been a slight increase in fees that will be paid by the OCEDT of about 2% from the previous year.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Any questions or comments? Please cast your votes. And it's approved. Next up has to do with the project on North Hudson. Kathy?
Yes, Jeremy Gardner is here this afternoon to make a brief presentation about a new residential project that is going to be developed at 6th and Hudson. It's a for-sale residential project that they have requested some TIF, mostly to address some public infrastructure issues in the area that have to do with stormwater drainage and flooding. And that, I'll turn it over to Jeremy.
Thank you. I'll just quickly run through these slides. My name is Jeremy Gardner with Gardner Architects. So what we have is a landlocked lot that's 75 by 105. We're proposing a 5-story new residential building here that would have 11 units. Some of the challenges that we are facing is, one, we had to end up acquiring the property to the north because the fact that this lot was landlocked, and to be able to access some of the public infrastructure, the sewer that runs in the alley to the north, for instance. So anyway, while we're doing the new building at 6th and Hudson, we're also going to end up improving the building just to the north. The other things that we're having to handle are, given the Hudson, its tendency to flood, we're having to pick up the finished floor of the building on the first floor, and by doing that, it creates some ADA accessibility issues around the building, so we're having to do a bump out into Hudson. And then also we have a traffic signal. We get into traffic signals, so it just sort of unravels a lot of other issues that we're having to address that will hopefully improve that intersection greatly. Let's see what else. The accessibility, storm sewer. We're doing new storm inlets both on 6th and on Hudson, and then new sidewalk, new alley on the north side of the building as well. So those are just some of the improvements that we're having to make based on the fact that the size of the lot and the hardships that we're coming up against on that. So, any questions?
Questions or comments?
I do have a question. What is meant by a bump out on Hudson?
A bump out means, I don't know if I have a site plan in this. So we're having to, because there's on-street parking currently on both sides of Hudson and on 6th. And so what we're having to do is take the curb out to with the edge of the on-street parking, so effectively 9 feet on both sides. So you can't really see it in that rendering, but what we have to do is to be able to gain accessible access to the building, we have to manipulate that grade around that intersection to do that. So it's a lot more curb and gutter, more sidewalk, moving that traffic signal, which we're having to move a gas line. We also bumped into some fiber, so there's all kinds of fun stuff at that intersection.
Right. And then what does that, okay, thank you. Assumed, oh, good. What does that do then to the width of Hudson through that area? And
It doesn't change the center line of Hudson. The traffic lanes don't change. It's basically, what it will do now is protect on-street parking there at that intersection. So we've
Okay.
done that on other projects that we've improved along Hudson also.
And then when you had described the need to acquire the building to the north, is that the old Allen's Restaurant building? Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And your square footage range for your 11 units?
They range from 1,300 to 1,800 square feet.
Ballpark price?
Construction budget?
No,
Per unit.
per unit.
Per unit. Oh, that's a question for Brent. Do you know what's the average? A little north of 400.
Thank you.
You know they're nice when it's referred to as 4 and change, right? Subject to negotiation, I assume that's what that means.
Sure,
but
yeah.
I would just add that, Brent does a great product. I've seen it elsewhere. Thankful that you're looking to invest in that particular area and talent that you're bringing into the equation. I think it's going to be a nice reuse of that, what had been mostly an old small residential house for years and a parking lot that kind of was an eyesore with the federal campus right there and all that's happening on Hudson. It's really going to be a nice addition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move approval?
We have a motion to approve. Second. Any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And it's approved. Thank you,
Thank
sir,
you
for
very much.
coming down. Okay, next up is a transfer of ownership of some property. Brent, do you want to handle this one?
Sure, happy
Who
to.
wants to handle this? Okay, so I gave it to him.
This item here is brought to you at the direction of the accounting office of the city. The Economic Development Trust is mainly a conduit. We have funds that come in, and then we go build things, and then they're essentially on our books. But we're doing things, this trust does things on the behalf of the city. And so the idea here is to transfer all those assets that we've built to the city so the city can have that on their books and it will not be on ours. So this is essentially what we're doing. What we're going to try to do as we go forward is when we bring a project back to you for final completion, we'll also not only accept the final completion, but also accept it and then recommend and then transfer said asset to the city. And then the city, when it goes to the city, they'll accept it and put it on their books. So as a person with a county degree, all we're doing is we're moving our assets from one entity to another. So
Thank you, sir. Well spoken.
thank you.
We have a motion? Question?
May I ask a question? Thank you. So I understand what you're doing, but the cover memo indicates that not all of the projects have been fully accepted as complete by the trust. If that's the case, are you asking for action contingent on that step? These projects have been completed and they have either been accepted by the trust or will soon be accepted by the trust. Should our motion acknowledge maybe that housekeeping first?
Which one? For acceptance. We have a couple of items that 7A and 7B will be on your agenda for next week or for next month, and we know what the final amount is, so we went ahead and included it on there.
So the amounts are correct,
Yeah, yes.
but the projects have not been final accepted.
Yes. But we anticipate doing that next month.
Would the motion of second accept a friendly to recognize that step?
Okay, we had a motion and a second, did we not? Yes. Okay. Any further questions or comments? Please cast your votes, and it is so done. Next up is a joint resolution, approve, wait a minute, over here, between the City of Oklahoma City and the Economic Development Trust about allocating some general obligation limited tax funds. You want to give us the introduction to that, Brent, or are you going to do it?
Amy, I think Amy,
Amy?
with
All
the
right.
chamber, is going to introduce the company, but 36 jobs, McLaren Plastics LLC.
Yes, I'm Amy Schoen. I'm with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber, and I'm happy to be here today to introduce Mr. Mike Clifford, who's the Senior Vice President of Business Development for McLaren Plastics. Mike Hogan and I have been working with Mike and his team for almost 2 years to help them determine a location decision to expand their operations. And with that, I'll let Mike talk about his project.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to come before you and introduce our company to you, and we're very excited about being a new business member of Oklahoma. Had just the opportunity within the last maybe a month, to become very familiar with the town and many of the amenities that it offers, and really a very impressive town, and you could tell that there's been a lot of thought to the planning that's gone into it. I will begin just briefly describing our company through the slides and how we intend to substantially grow the Oklahoma operation, and with that the job base that will be required in order for us to do so. We have a process that is composite manufacturing, and with that composite manufacturing, it's very labor intensive. It's not where you stand in front of a machine and you push a button or otherwise. It's a craft. And it's a craft that takes probably as much as 12 weeks just to become generally proficient at being able to actually manufacture and participate in the process itself in a very safe manner. So with that, just a company overview. We're a company that was founded in 1953, been around in manufacturing for a few years, and it's in today's times that's an accomplishment all by itself. We are non-union, and our current ownership is since 2015, where we merged our East Coast operation in Hanover, Pennsylvania, merged with a company of equal size in Washington, state of Washington, and we became McLaren Plastics LLC with our headquarters in Hanover, Pennsylvania. We're ranked number 35 in North America's 2016 ranking of thermoformers. We're one of the largest composite manufacturers in the nation, and I say that there's very little information in terms of composite manufacturing on a public scale. It's a very fragmented industry. It's a very low barrier of entry, and because of that, there's an awful lot of small businesses that actually are involved in composite manufacturing. But having said that, we work for large OEMs that require very substantial design support, very substantial quality, ISO certifications, repeatable process certifications, and so on. So that's our methodology of differentiating ourselves in working in that context. We employ 477 people currently. 228 in the east and 249 in the west and down in Elmore, Alabama. Our core competency, again, as it indicates there, is that we engineer composite and thermoform assemblies. And by that, when I say assemblies, we rarely, if ever, I can think of one instance where we actually just form, trim, and ship apart, where our business model is such that we actually have very deep value add where we attack a value proposition with the customer, where we do as much downstream assembly, where it's plug and play for the customer as much as they allow us to be. So, and that's another differentiator for us, and the model that we've been very successful at expanding. Companies, the plastic manufacturing process. I'm sorry, I should be advancing this. I'm not sure what you're seeing up there. There we go. Okay, the plastic manufacturing process itself is, we have three core processes. Fiberglass reinforced plastic, which is a thermoset process where we're dealing with chemicals, resins, glass, promoter, and gel coats to actually create a part through a different methodology. It's using vacuum fusion, resin transfer molding, light resin transfer molding, and molded-in technology. The low barrier of entry I mentioned is the open mold and hand layup process. Thankfully, it's a dyeing process where that has a lot of air emissions associated with it, and we've dramatically moved our company completely away from open mold and hand layup, though there are still applications where a customer actually pushes you in that direction. We do low pressure SMC, cold molding, and all of our facilities are, of course, EPA and DEP compliant. The thermoforming process is a plastic manufacturing process where we buy plastic sheet, whether it's ABS, polyethylene, whatever. We heat the sheet, drape it over either a male or a female mold, strike a vacuum, and the plastic then forms the part that the mold generates. That's vacuum and pressure molding, twin sheet thermoforming, as well as fabrication. And then we do, most recently, 3 years ago, we started a reaction injection molding process where we're using urethanes in a very interesting feedstock called toluene. It's a PDCPD. It has properties associated with it that's very attractive to the OEMs in terms of heat resistance, impactability, and the mechanicals that they're looking for. And of course, all of our manufacturing is all robotic and CNC trimmed, so we have repeatable processes which allow us to work for the large OEMs and satisfy our ISO requirements. We also in Pennsylvania have a wet paint spray process. In fact, we're looking for and desperately need a really good commercial industrial wet paint company here in Oklahoma, and we're in the process of selecting and pre-qualifying those. The background, as far again, we are headquartered in Hanover, Pennsylvania. We have a little over 600,000 square feet under roof over in various facilities in Hanover, Wapato, Washington, Elmore, Alabama, and now in Oklahoma City. The newly acquired location is on Northwest 36th Street. It's a former custom composites manufacturing facility. And they had just moved, in fact, in August to this facility from a prior location. Beautiful, beautiful structure, so well suited for what we do. It's open frame, and portions are high bay, which is important to us for gantry use and so on, and just really well suited. And we can see a really bright future out of this base of operation. One of the things that, and I mentioned this a number of times to the folks there in the chamber, the pro-business outlook and the enthusiastic support that we had through the process of looking at my mandate as the chief acquisition officer of the company. I had to look for a footprint here in the central part of the United States, and I was looking in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and a portion of Missouri, and hands down, it was not only is the footprint absolutely perfect for us, but the support, the enthusiasm, the reach, the outreach that we experienced to continue to say, what do you need? How can we help you? It was really quite extraordinary, and it really did. It's a game changer in terms of, just like we try and set ourselves apart from our competition, I think you do the same thing from my experience, and you to really be committed for that. The capital investment, our capital investment, frankly, was in a purchase. It was an asset purchase that we just recently transacted less than 4 weeks ago. And so the site itself is really well suited. It's all brand new machinery and equipment, air quality, cleansing equipment, and so on that we need to be able to do the process that we do. But over the next 5 years, we see usually we see an investment profile within that type of manufacturing facility historically of about 1.5% of revenue. So we're looking at potentially and frankly, after we're looking at all the work that we're going to be transferring in there and rationalizing footprint from elsewhere in the country, we're initially looking at $600,000, and it'll probably not stop there. The jobs, this was really the most important part of our decision criteria, or one of the most important parts of the decision criteria, is that, again, as I mentioned early on, it's a very manual process, and we need people to do that. It's not an automated process. We don't have automated spraying mechanisms and so on. People need to be well-trained. It's a skilled workforce, and we need folks to be able to assist us with that effort. So they currently have 24 employees, and we, during the initial 5-year period of time, this year we're planning on 19, adding 19 immediately, so, and we're in the process of doing that now. 8 the following year, 9, 10, and 12 should round out that 5-year program if we're to achieve the revenue projections that we anticipate out of this facility. They're currently a small operation. They've been affected, by the economy as well as many other businesses. They're currently a $3 million company, and in 5 years we anticipate with a very methodical thought process to have that over $12 million. And again, that's indicated there with a 32.4% compounded average growth rate that's planned for this location, which in itself is pretty extraordinary when you think about it. And it's exciting. And the fun thing is that everybody there, the base of operations and the base employees that are there, are very, very excited about the prospect of what they see before them. We have a presentation that's an offshoot to the one you see here that we actually did with that employee group, and it was very, very well received. The wages, the average first-year wage is projected to be over $35,000. I wish I could say it was the $85,000 to $90,000 that the engineers get, but this is a little bit of a different application. Skilled manufacturing labor, as I mentioned previously, 12-week learning curve to achieve the kind of proficiency that we need to be able to do the work safely and to the quality standards that the customers expect. Just a little bit about McLaren. I've been with McLaren now for 28 years. It's kind of crazy how quickly that goes. But I'm really proud of many of the things that we've done in terms of community support and involvement. We're major contributors to capital campaigns for our community hospitals, the YMC capital drives for expansions for our local YMCAs, blood drives, fundraisers for the American Cancer Society, supporting the Rotary with the various events that they do in town to raise money and encourage our employees to actually participate in those programs. We've also, what's really interesting, and this was an offshoot to our desperate need for trained workforce, is we really weren't satisfied with the type and caliber of employees that were actually coming out of the high schools and even out of the 2-year programs beyond the high schools, the tech programs. So we actually created a curriculum internally, and it's called Languages of Manufacturing and Manufacturing Economics, where we taught them what do we do and why do we do it. Why are we so concerned about labor standards? Where do they come from? How do you build a price and see that labor standard when we're building the price, where we're trying to get a margin, when we're quoting a customer? That's the benchmark. So we teach our employees exactly everything there is about the business, so that, especially where they can have impact. And then they really can put it into context as to why we're so focused on that and what they can do to actually help the company succeed. But that program, the manufacturing, or the Languages of Manufacturing program, actually has been awarded through the Governor's Action Council and Workforce Development Group. It's actually received awards and is actually used widely now throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we actually teach that internally. We have a facilitator, and then the executive group or the managers of different department heads within the company, they actually teach their respective disciplines for that course. So if there's a connection between the academic side and the company side. We also are very, very involved in Penn College, which is the technical arm of Penn State University. We actually started and created their plastics technology curriculum and sit on their board. And so we're very, very involved in the education and training of the workforce, of our workforce. Our customers, just very briefly, wrap this up, getting a little long-winded, sorry. We work for a lot, we're very diverse. We've spent a great deal of time over the last several years just balancing that pie chart. And we were, at one point in time, very, very concentrated into construction, both in terms of the construction market segment as well as our customer base. We've done a really good job in redeploying that concentration into a very diversified mix of both markets and customers. And you can see the diversity that we have there, including, some very, very complex, highly designed, highly engineered type applications, which is really the model that we try and pursue. And various customers that we deal with, most of them are blue chips, and they have very demanding quality expectations, which is why the training and education side of our workforce is of critical importance to our success. Okay, so with that, I'd just like to thank you for your kind attention and for your consideration with the wonderful program that you offer and provide within the City of Oklahoma, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Go.
Never looked this way.
This is the president of the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce.
Is that right? There you go.
So,
we have not met. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I know you're Chief Acquisition Officer, but are you an engineer by trade?
I'm not. I'm actually before we actually did the merger, I was the CFO of McLaren Plastics in Hanover, Pennsylvania, which is where we have our headquarters currently. So I started out in public accounting. I'm a CPA and one of those boring guys.
Well, you've mastered the acronyms in your business. What is the CNC trim? I followed you all the way until robotics and CNC trim.
CNC it's a repeatable process. It's programmable. It's computer pneumatic controls.
Okay.
So it's computer pneumatic controls where you actually program just a trim pass. So everything that we do, we don't do hand trim anywhere in our company. We actually they're either done through robots or a 5-axis trimming machine.
And then on your last, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, they don't have that here, and we are back to now trimming by hand, but and we're managing that through fixtures and fixtures with repeatable processes, and that's part of that $600,000 investment that you'll see.
And on your last slide, what is the, Regina, if you don't mind the last slide.
Jeannie?
Okay, what is the brand underneath Bluebird on the far left bottom? What?
Great question.
Sorry, I always ask Stumper.
I'm trying to think of that's probably on one of those obscure things the sales guys put in there on their marketing.
Yeah, those guys are always like that.
Those guys, they're always trying to do razzle-dazzle. To be honest with you, I don't know that answer.
Oh, okay, no problem. And lastly, just thank you, Mike, for your kind comments about the economic development team at the Chamber. They do a great job.
It really is. I'll tell you what, you do set yourself apart from the other states from my experience. So I appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions? Any chance you can use some of that plastic on our new modern streetcar?
Oh, I hope so.
We do too.
I hope so. We need to take a hard look at that. That'd be great. How close are you? How close are you to that?
They're putting the track in as we speak.
Oh, terrific.
And the streetcars themselves have already been ordered, so we're moving forward.
That's it. One of the hardest things that we have and one of the toughest challenges that we have with working with customers is getting us in on the front end as far as possible to allow us to assist them with the design that's appropriate for plastics and composite manufacturing. That's a battle. It's very tough to do. So,
Well, welcome to Oklahoma City.
hey, thank you very much. It's good to be here. Thank you all.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any questions or comments? Please cast your votes. And it is approved. Next up, the Oklahoma Economic Development Foundation third quarter report.
Kurt Foreman with the Chamber of Commerce is here to give their report.
Turns out that Mike's son-in-law is a doctor at where my parents live, so small world.
Well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to one-up you. I used to teach manufacturing at the same plant that buildings out there in Northwest 36th.
Very good,
I'm
very
taking
good.
full credit
Small
for this.
We told him that you loved manufacturing projects, so he was excited that someone liked it as much as he did. A few things. We're here for our quarterly update, and really just again say thank you for all that you do on many, many fronts. And the report that we typically do was sent to you. As I've shared with you the last couple quarters, I feel like we're back on track. I've shared with you, I've talked to people all over the country, and they all experience the same thing, but during the federal election cycle, for some reason, people are doing their homework, but they don't come out the other end of the sausage machine, if you will. And so we had a very slow fall in terms of outcomes, but we had lots of work we were doing helping companies like McLaren go through this process. This quarter has picked up again, and we're seeing a lot more projects. I think you're going to hear about some more in the near term as well. So we're very pleased with the third quarter and feel like we're on track. As usual, a lot of the retail stats that are in the report, a lot of the retail activity around ICSC and all are things that happen typically in May. They happen in the fourth quarter of the contract, so those numbers will all catch up on the retail side because the majority of the outcomes happen during this part of the year. I decided that it might be interesting for you because we've talked about pipeline. I've shared with you in the past that our pipeline continues to be very robust. We've had about 48 projects over the last couple months, and we've been as high as about 50. I thought I'd share a few slides with you and for those watching, just to give you some background. And is this mouse going to work? There we go. I've shared with you before our pipeline and that it stays strong. We have at the end of March 48 projects representing over 15,000 potential jobs and almost $600 million of potential capital investment. Just in the last month, the job count went up by 3,000 and the investment numbers went up again for the year, again by over 60 million. So we've seen very strong interest in the market, which is very promising. And the rest just gives you some sense. And just for math purposes, not every project gives us all 5 of these data points. So to take one and divide it by the other, while that sounds like a good idea, it doesn't always work mathematically. Just to give you a sense, 48 sounds like a lot, but this gives you our track of pipeline projects for the last 4 years plus the beginning of this year. The yellow line, the heavy sort of mustard-colored line, was last year's activity. We started out the year at 26 projects and ended the year at 45, actually over 50 right before the end of the year. And you see we've come out strong in the first 3 months of 17 in the 47 to 48 range. So the activity is the highest we've seen over the last, since about, it looks like since about May of last year, we've been in new territory as far as we've been tracking it for the last 5 years. So very promising news. We often like to look and see where are projects coming to us from. Are they coming to us directly? Are they coming from another partner? You can see ODOC stands for the Oklahoma Department of Commerce. Of course, we have to have a couple acronyms. ODOC is usually 40 to 50% of our project leads. In some of our smaller communities, for example, around Oklahoma, that number may be in the 70 to 80% range. So being the major metro area in the region, or in the state, we often get other inquiries too, but you see we're having a healthy set of contacts from site selectors. That's why we go after those people on a regular basis, because they can bring us a project directly. We've had a good, healthy number of direct inquiries from companies themselves, and then either from a trade show or some other source, and that's all helpful information. This is the Larry McAtee slide. We wanted you to see the kind of projects that we are looking at currently. And Larry, we were very pleased to see that 22 of our 48 projects are manufacturing related. So I know we often talk about that with you when we see you around, but we have a nice healthy mix of projects. Manufacturing has really come back to the forefront. At times it slips back, but right now a very large percentage of our projects have manufacturing as some portion of their operation, which is very positive. Spring is often a time where we do a lot of traveling. Jeff Seymour, who actually I should introduce Jeff. You've met Jeff before, Jeff Seymour. We just promoted him about a week and a half ago to take Mike Ogan's spot on our team as Director of Business Development, so he's in a new role. He and I just came back from the Industrial Asset Management Council, which is a corporate real estate conference for companies that are in manufacturing or distribution. And that's a key conference because these folks represent national or global corporations and the consultants who sort of cater to them. So it's a key audience for us, and we are with them twice a year. We're actually one of the founding sponsors and members of that organization from Oklahoma City. And we've had that conference here in Oklahoma City in the past, so they've experienced our community in the past. ICSC is a show we talk about pretty frequently. Some of you have been there before. That's the International Council of Shopping Centers. It's the largest retail show in the world. Picture 900,000 square feet of space dedicated to a huge trade show. Councilman Pettis went last year, and I think he wore out a pair of shoes or two walking the conference. It's a big show. Kathy goes with us regularly. The mayor goes. We have a variety of partners. Jane Jenkins goes with us. And so that's a positive show, and that's coming up. So we're in the prep work on that right now. And then one of our other very large shows that we do each spring, the Bio International, is the largest bioscience show in North America. People from all over the world come in. I think ICSC is 30 to 40,000 attendees. Bio is usually in the 17 to 18,000 range, and we have a big booth. And in fact, here's a picture of our ICSC booth from last year. You can see that maybe, I don't know, Kathy, you have a green jacket. That's either you or Cynthia and Tammy, and maybe talking to some guests from another part of the country. But we go and plop down a very large booth at both those shows and really make sure people know that Oklahoma and Oklahoma City is there. So we just wanted to share with you that this is one of our busy seasons. Lots of good things going on. We feel like activity is back up positively, and you should be hearing some more outcomes from us very soon. And you've heard from Mike how important a company and how long sometimes companies go through their process. Not that it's bad, but they go through a lot of different scenarios. We worked with them for quite a while, but you then also heard that they're the kind of company we want in our community that gets involved and is involved in the community, and that's exactly why we do what we do. So again, thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Questions for Kurt? Go.
What was its code name?
What was its code name?
It was what? Oh, okay.
Sometimes we know them, sometimes we don't. At the next one, I'll share with you some of our favorite code names from over the last couple years. So we sometimes have very odd ones. Most of them we don't make up. Most of them are come to us with a name. You're welcome.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
We're now at that part in the agenda which you all have been on the edge of your seats for. Are there any comments from staff? Seeing none, any trustees like to make a comment? Again, seeing none, any citizens wishing to be heard? With that, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your attendance.